My husband Joaquin was reborn and returned to when he was 17. In the principal's office, he stood up for his goddess with righteous fury, clutching his beloved goddess. He roared like he was starring in a melodrama. "Call the cops! Check the cameras! This time, I swear I'll expose your true colors in front of everyone." Also reborn. I calmly turned to open the door for the arriving police. Already called them on the way here. Don't thank me, dumbass. Chapter 1. In the restroom of the old school building, Cristiana hummed a tune while pressing a cigarette butt into my shoulder under the sound of rushing water. "Rebecca, let me warn you, don't think you can get close to Joaquin Moo just because Aunt Moo likes you. You're nothing but a stray the Moo family threw a bone to." Cristiana was my sister-in-law. She was also the adopted daughter of my mother-in-law, whom she referred to as Aunt Moo, taken in from an orphanage. Ms. Moo had always been enthusiastic about charity, sponsoring many impoverished and underprivileged children. I was one of them. At the opening ceremony of our first year in high school, I was selected to give a speech for having scored first in the entrance exam. Ms. Moo, the school board chair, was sitting front row and recognized me instantly. She was delighted. She asked me to help her son, my classmate Waqin, with his studies. I agreed. I thought it was just a simple way of returning her kindness. But Cristiana, who had a long-time crush on Joaquin, clearly didn't see it that way. She began bullying me, slapping me, tearing my homework, hiding razor blades in my desk, sprinkling lime powder in my water bottle, following me after school with a bunch of thugs. In my previous life, I endured it all so Ms. Moo wouldn't be put in a difficult position. But before she died, she told me she had known everything all along. From the very beginning, she had watched me struggle in the depths, aloof and amused, treating all my suffering as a test, one she believed necessary for me to become a worthy daughter-in-law. She said she was pleased, because, just as she'd hoped, I had proven myself loyal, capable, and obedient, like a well-trained dog. No wonder she forced Joaquin to get engaged to me right after I became the top science student in the province. Chapter 2. What? Cat got your tongue? Say something. Suddenly, Cristiana snapped and slapped me hard across the face. The pain jolted me awake. I realized this wasn't just another nightmare, it was real. And this time, I had the chance to change everything. My fingers trembled at the realization. Cristiana tried to yank my hair, but I grabbed her wrist instead. "You sure no one's coming?" "Of course." She smirked. "I've got people watching both staircases. Don't count on a teacher showing up to save you." "Perfect." I twisted her wrist. As Cristiana screamed in pain, I dragged her into a stall and shoved her face into the toilet bowl. She thrashed under my grip, but it was useless. I'd grown up in a poor mountain village. Chopping wood and cutting grass was normal for me. Cristiana, spoiled her whole life, was no match for my strength. I yanked her head up by the hair and smiled. "How's the toilet water taste?" Her lipstick was smeared, eyeliner running down her face. She opened her mouth to scream, so I shoved her back down again. This time, I held her there longer. When I pulled her up again, she was much more compliant, no more screaming, just sobbing softly like a kicked puppy. "I'll tell the teachers you're bullying me, Rebecca. You'll get expelled." That's exactly what I wanted. I dragged her out of the stall by the hair. "Go ahead. But remember, Cristiana, so long as I'm in this school, you'll live this kind of life. You'll never get to feel good again." These were the exact words Cristiana once said to me in our previous life. Now, I gave them back, every last one. Chapter 3. Cristiana ran off crying. I knew she was going to report me. Compared to a poor scholarship student like Rebecca, the rich and privileged Cristiana could easily cry foul and be taken seriously. I didn't bother with her. I returned to the stall from earlier, aimed for the water pipe on the wall, and slammed into it hard. That's how I reunited with the Moo family. This time, not at my engagement party with Joaquin, but in the principal's office. Rebecca bullied Cristiana like this? I don't care what the reason is, Rebecca must be expelled today. Joaquin roared at the principal. Cristiana was curled up in his arms, trembling. Her clothes were soaked, and her soft, youthful curves were on full display. Ms. Moo sat gracefully on the couch, adorned in designer clothes and jewelry, silent. But the fact that she showed up at all was already a clear statement. Now, Ms. Moo, the principal said with unusual composure, so different from the bootlicker he usually was around her. Let's not jump to conclusions before the facts are clear. What did you say? Joaquin shouted. Just then, the door creaked open. The homeroom teacher carefully helped me inside. There was a bruise on the corner of my mouth. My right arm was in a cast and hung in a sling, and the torn collar of my shirt exposed several angry red burns. Joaquin looked like a goose whose throat had suddenly been squeezed. He choked on his words. Stunned, Ms. Mu's eyes widened in shock. Cristiana nearly jumped out of Joaquin's arms. You, Aunt Mu. I greeted her first with a nod. I'm sorry we had to meet again under these circumstances. What happened? Ms. Mu came up and held my uninjured hand with concern. Good child. Tell Auntie the truth. What really happened? I bit my lip, as if I were hesitating. Her tone hardened. Be good. I slowly pointed at Cristiana. Cristiana shrieked. She's lying. She attacked me. Mu Auntie. My clothes are soaked. Cristiana dragged me into the bathroom after school. She had people guarding the stairwells so no one could come. Then she tore my clothes, burned me with her cigarette, and called me a whore. I spoke calmly. I didn't hit her. Her clothes got wet because she shoved me and broke a pipe. Cristiana lunged at me. Liar! You broke your own arm and blamed me. I didn't respond. I simply lowered my gaze to the pocket of her soaked blouse, now nearly see-through. The red cigarette pack and lighter inside were clearly visible. Ms. Mu's face tensed. She strode forward and pulled the pack and lighter from Cristiana's pocket. The bright red cigarette box fell to the floor like a glowing sign of mockery. Still lying? What, did Rebecca burn herself on purpose just to frame you? She snapped. Then, smack! Ms. Mu slapped Cristiana across the face. Apologize to Rebecca. Chapter 4. Ms. Mu had always been the kind of person who prized elegance and decorum, someone who believed violence was a tool of savages. But this time, she had slapped Cristiana herself. Clearly, she had lost it. Cristiana was stunned. You hit me, for Rebecca. Mu Auntie? She turned away and buried her face in Joaquin's chest, wailing. Waqin raised his head and looked at Ms. Mu with pure disappointment. Mom, I know you like Rebecca, but Cristiana is family. How could you hit her just because of Rebecca's story? Holding Cristiana in his arms, he shouted like a character in some old-school melodrama. Call the police. Check the surveillance. This time I'll expose your true nature to everyone. As he said this, he glanced at me with an expression no 17-year-old could ever possess, one filled with deep, festering resentment. My heart started racing. After being husband and wife for years, I didn't need more evidence, just that one look. And I knew. Waqin had been reborn too. Perfect. I smiled. Every grudge has a face. Every debt a name. And the Waqin who hurt me in my last life? He's the one who'll pay it back in this one. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Perfectly on cue. Without sparing a glance at the tragic lovebirds on the floor, I walked over and opened the door for the police officers. I already called them on the way here. Don't thank me, dumbass. Chapter 5. The police moved quickly. At Joaquin's insistence, they carefully reviewed all the school's surveillance footage from the past hour, and sure enough, they found a camera that caught the girls' restroom. That camera was normally blocked by the thick sycamore leaves in summer, but with the leaves now fallen in autumn, the lens had a clear view of the bathroom window, only the window. Though, still, it perfectly captured the moment Cristiana pressed a lit cigarette onto my shoulder, though it couldn't see what happened afterward. And since Cristiana and I were about the same height and build, and the entire restroom floor was soaked from the broken pipe, all the footprints were smudged beyond recognition. The most the scene investigation could conclude was that a fight had taken place. As for figuring out who attacked whom, well, current forensic science isn't that advanced. What they could do was extract Cristiana's fingerprints and saliva from the cigarette butt on the floor. Also, the girls Cristiana had posted as lookouts by the stairs were caught clearly on another camera. And those wannabe gangsters? They cracked after just a couple bluffing questions from the police. Not only did they confess everything, but they also helpfully added a long list of Cristiana's past bullying incidents. Turns out I wasn't the first girl Cristiana had targeted. Basically, any girl who got a little too close to Waqin ended up in her crosshairs. One girl in Joaquin's class was actually very shy and quiet, just because she had a larger chest and Waqin had once made a joke about it. Cristiana had some thugs gang rape her. The girl tried to end her life multiple times and was now on indefinite leave due to trauma. Cristiana couldn't accept the outcome. She pushed everyone aside and ran to the monitor, rewinding and replaying the footage over and over again. No, this can't be. What are the odds? You must have all planned this together. The officer she shoved aside frowned. Young lady, do you know what you're saying? We haven't even spoken to the person who called us yet. You tell me, how exactly did we all plan this? Cristiana had no answer. She buried her head in her arms and broke down in tears. I stood at the back of the crowd, watching the whole scene like a disinterested stranger. That hidden camera? I found out about it in my past life, back when I returned as an honored alum to donate for the renovation of the school building. I didn't want to donate to a place filled with so many painful memories. But Cristiana knew exactly how to hurt me. She talked Ms. Mu and Joaquin into forcing me into it. The whole Mu family ganged up on me. So you see, everything in this world has its time and place. What goes around always comes around. Chapter 6. Joaquin was completely broken. In less than an hour, the goddess he'd worshipped his whole life had shattered before his very eyes. Now he looked like a man who had lost everything. He crouched down on the floor, grabbing his hair. No. No. This can't be right. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Suddenly, he raised his head, red-eyed, and yelled at me. It's you, isn't it? You did all this. What? Did I grab her hand and press the cigarette into myself? I shot back coldly. Joaquin choked on his words. In our past life, I had been his wife. I was Ms. Mu's chosen heir, the CEO of the Mu Group. With that power and status, I fit the mold of the classic evil female lead from every romance drama. So of course Joaquin found it easy, almost natural, to blame everything on me without ever questioning if it made sense. If Cristiana was hurt, it had to be my doing, because I was cold-hearted, cruel, and vindictive. If Cristiana hurt someone else, it was still me. I must have orchestrated it out of jealousy for her innocence and virtue. But now, I had nothing. And Cristiana, she was still the same rotten-to-the-core monster she'd always been. She didn't need anyone to frame her. She'd always been like this. Joaquin stared at Cristiana as the officers twisted her arms behind her and dragged her away. Suddenly, he laughed, covering his face. Tears streamed through his fingers. The laugh grew louder and louder until it dissolved into sobs. Ms. Mu rushed forward, frightened, to steady him, but Joaquin shook her off and bolted from the room. Chapter 7. I watched as Cristiana was shoved screaming into the back of a police car. Assault, incitement, false accusation, defamation, hiring thugs to hurt someone. Since she was already 17 and the case was particularly serious, Cristiana was destined to serve a few years. No one could save her now. My arm was diagnosed with a bone fracture, classified as a second-degree injury. If I chose to press charges, the Mu family would owe me at least 200,000 yuan in compensation. Ms. Mu said she could give me $1 million, as long as I signed a letter of forgiveness and dropped the criminal charges against Cristiana. $1 million? I'd pay $1 million just to watch Cristiana rot in jail. Watching a villain get what they deserve? Way more satisfying than seeing one wrongfully punished. After I turned her down, Ms. Mu's face turned ugly. She said, "Rebecca, what have you become? I'm really disappointed in you." I let out a short laugh. I don't give a damn what you think. I knew Ms. Mu too well. Someone like her would never let a slap to the face slide. She'd make sure I got disciplined. She believed in whipping when you're wrong, and rewarding only when you've earned it. She was an expert in the art of dog training. Sure enough, the very next day, my homeroom teacher called. He told me my poverty grant had been revoked and that senior year tuition had to be paid early. I was to bring the money when I returned to school. You see, Ms. Mu really was a businesswoman. She knew exactly where to strike, the throat of the snake. Tuition at Chenqiao High was 5,000 yuan a year. I barely scraped that together through scholarships and part-time jobs during winter and summer breaks. But the senior year scholarship hadn't come in yet. I was still in my second year. Where was I supposed to find 5,000 yuan? And now, without my monthly subsidy for low-income students, I was about to face the very real problem of not even affording food. Ms. Mu's intent was crystal clear. She wanted to force me to surrender. But she really underestimated me. 5,000 yuan might be enough to crush a poor kid with no skills or means of survival. but it can't kill a fully trained programmer with 2 decades of experience, a complete theoretical framework, and top-notch technical expertise. In my last life, I turned Moo Group from a fading dinosaur into one of the few true tech giants in the industry, all by myself. And now, I stood at the edge of a tech landscape still wide open, with the blueprint for the next 20 years of innovation in my hands. Not putting it to use would be a crime against destiny. Bathed in the golden light of the 8 a.m. sun, I took a deep breath and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. The world is wide, and the sky's the limit. My heart surged with ambition. Chapter 8. I filed a 1-month medical leave for recovery. No computer? No problem. I rented a private booth at the dingy internet cafe downstairs. It took me 7 days to write 3 bootstrapping algorithms. On the 8th day, with a USB drive in my pocket, I headed alone to a rundown office building in Startup Village. The tenant was a guy named Claude, beard like a jungle, hair like a bird's nest, and overall even more unkempt than the building itself. But I knew better. That name, Claude, would one day be engraved in the hearts of every keyboard and search bar user on the planet. He would go on to develop a search engine fully based on language logic, universally praised by netizens as the most intuitive and efficient of its kind. Unfortunately, because of critical technical bottlenecks, it launched a full year behind its global competitors. That delay cost it early dominance in the market, leading to low usage rates and constant accusations of plagiarism from internet bootlickers worshipping foreign products. I know you're missing 5 bootstrapping algorithms. I sat across from Claude, who looked like his eyeballs were about to pop out, and tried my best to look like a seasoned tech boss. I placed the USB drive on the desk. There are 3 in here. If you agree to my terms, I'll give you the last 2. Chapter 9. Hey, old bye. Once Claude confirmed I wasn't joking, he turned and shouted toward the hallway. A chubby guy who looked like a jolly Buddha waddled in grinning. What's up, Claude? Claude tossed him the USB stick. Install it. Try it. No way, you're serious? This girl doesn't even look legal yet, and you're pulling a Hail Mary with her code. Both Claude and I shot him a glare, and he quickly shut up, muttering under his breath as he scurried off with the drive. 10 minutes later, he stormed back in, red-faced and ecstatic. It worked! Claude, it worked! Local deployments down to 8 minutes. Ha 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 ha, we did it! He yanked Claude from his chair and dragged him around the room in a mix of dancing and yelling. Claude looked like he'd seen a ghost. He twisted his neck to look at me. What about cross-platform? No problem. Windows, Linux, and macOS all run it fine. At this pace, we could launch in 3 months. 3 months is too slow. I hadn't eaten breakfast to save money and was gnawing on a cream bun Claude had given me. Hearing the timeline, I remembered the search engine that overshadowed Claude his whole life. It also launched 3 months later. I immediately felt uneasy. If possible, it's best to launch within 2 months. Hype it up early. We can patch the details later, right now. Getting ahead in the market is everything. I swallowed the last bite of cake and added, if you're short on hands, I can help. The chubby guy practically lit up like a Christmas tree. Sis, with you on board, I've got nothing to worry about. However you want to do this, we're with you all the way. Claude still had a shred of caution left. He shoved the chubby guy aside and looked at me seriously. You still haven't said what you want. I slowly raised a hand with 5 fingers. 50 grand? Chubster guessed. I shook my head. 500? 5 million? Still shaking. You don't mean 500 million, do you? He turned helplessly to Claude. Claude nodded slowly, visibly tense. If it's 500 million, maybe after launch, but not now. Were these 2 guys out of their minds? 5,000. Expression blank. I maintained my big shot posture and gave them a cool glance from above. Cash. Hurry up. I need to pay my tuition. Chapter 10. Claude transferred me 50,000. After learning about my background, he took me to the bank to open a new savings account in my name, deposited the money, and withdrew 15,000 yuan in cash for me to use. The area I lived in was a messy urban village full of all kinds of people. Claude flatly refused to let an underage, injured girl carrying a fat stack of cash take a cab home alone. He insisted on driving me back himself. When his flashy red Faraday stopped at the end of my narrow alleyway, the entire village practically exploded. Rebecca! Who's that? My landlord, an old lady with shifty eyes. dragged her stool out to sunbathe and shamelessly scanned between me and Claude like a nosy tabloid journalist looking for dirt. My uncle, passing through on a business trip, stopped by to check on me. I lied casually and shoved a carton of discount eggs into Claude's hands like it was the most natural thing in the world. Claude picked up the act immediately. Total drama king. He started handing eggs out to our neighbors like a pro. Rebecca's teacher called me, said she got hurt at school. I was nearby, so I stopped by to see her. Picked up some groceries for everyone on the way. It's nothing, really. Thanks for taking care of my niece. The old landlady clutched her eggs, her suspicion melting, but she gave one last jab. Your uncle must be rich. Huh? Fancy car just for a work trip. Aw no. The car's the boss's. I just drive it. Claude said it without blinking. Uncle, hurry up and drop off the stuff and go. I chimed in, deadpan. You've got to get back before your boss finishes his meeting. Claude nodded and opened the trunk, hauling out 2 crates of milk, a bag of groceries, and a giant snack bundle of Wang brand goodies. The smiling, chubby cartoon kid in nothing but a vest and undies on the bag looked like it was ready to celebrate the new year. Anyone trying to think dirty was instantly smacked in the face by those big googly eyes. Disappointed by the lack of gossip, the crowd dispersed. Once the door closed, Claude looked at me, half laughing. Uncle? What else could I say? I raised a brow. Troubled high school girl and her sugar daddy? I have a reputation. You know, you don't want the village gossip office writing you into some weird little soap opera either. True. Claude nodded seriously. Uncle it is. Then he reached out and messed up my hair until I matched his own bird's nest aesthetic. Just as I was about to scratch his face off, he backed away with a laugh and ran to the door. Uncle's leaving. Take care, kid. Scram. Chapter 11. Claude didn't get to leave. The moment he opened the door, a blur of gray came flying out of nowhere, yanked him by the collar, and nearly knocked him over. Now, Claude might look like your stereotypical tech nerd, and he was one, but he was still a healthy young man over 6 feet tall. Instinctively, he raised his leg and kicked the guy 2 meters back. Who the hell are you? The guy stumbled on the ground before finally scrambling up, and as soon as I saw his face, I knew it. Joaquin. He hadn't expected anyone else to be here. His eyes locked onto Claude and narrowed. Who are you? What are you doing at Rebecca's place? Claude turned back and asked me, You know this guy? The neighborhood we lived in was packed and nosy. Any tiny commotion and the whole street would be buzzing. I could already see curious heads poking out. People whispering about me and Joaquin. It was giving me a headache. Yeah, his name's Joaquin. That girl who beat me up at school. He's her brother, probably here to start something. I couldn't exactly tell Claude. Oh, this is my ex-husband from a previous life. So I went with what I could say. Claude nodded, then casually shoved me behind him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Joaquin froze for a second, and the moment he saw my hand clutching Claude's sleeve, he completely lost it. Rebecca! Who the hell is this guy? What's it to you? I shot back, totally over it. How's it not my business? I'm. Joaquin fumbled on the words. Face flushed, but never managed to get one out. His eyes reddened. I held my newly bought phone and looked at him coldly. If he so much as muttered one disgusting word like husband or hubby, I'd send him straight to a psych ward for delusional disorder, and sue him for defamation while I was at it. Coming to my doorstep in broad daylight and making a scene, what if someone actually believed I was two-timing him? He'd ruin my reputation. I stepped forward and positioned myself in front of Claude. This was my mess. No reason to drag anyone else into it. What if Joaquin really snapped and tried to hit Claude? Joaquin was glued to every move between Claude and me, eyes practically spitting fire. Then he lunged forward to grab me, but Claude moved faster. He sidestepped and blocked Joaquin's hand, then shoved him back a few steps with ease. You want to know who I am? Claude lifted his chin and declared with full pride. I'm Rebecca's uncle, her second uncle. Chapter 12. Okay then. I quietly stepped aside and handed the stage to my uncle. Say, what's wrong with you, kid? Your sister beat my Rebecca half to death at school, and we haven't even come knocking for that yet. Now you come barging into our home throwing a tantrum? And no. This is between me and Rebecca. Tell her to come out and talk to me. Joaquin stammered, trying to take control, and finally pointed right at me, voice raised. Fine, Rebecca. Come on out. Let everyone take a look. Claude grabbed my arm, the one still in a cast, and held it up like a trophy for all the neighbors to see. Look! Everybody take a good look. This is what they did to our girl. I was speechless. That's when I realized Claude might be a tech genius, but he totally turns into a drama queen in front of a crowd. People immediately swarmed closer. Oh dear. It's in a cast. That's a fracture for sure. Seriously? So young and already this violent. What kind of parents raise kids like that? I mean, come on, if the family had any manners at all, his sister wouldn't go around beating people up, and this boy wouldn't be showing up to threaten folks. Damn punks bullying all the way into our neighborhood. I recognize that uniform. He's from Chunchow Experimental High. Let's report him to the school tomorrow. Let's go. I'm in. Joaquin's face turned white, then red, then back to white again. He finally gritted his teeth and glared daggers at Claude. I don't believe you. Rebecca's an orphan. How the hell does she have an uncle? Chapter 13. What's that supposed to mean? I sneered and played it up. So what if I'm an orphan? Does that mean my entire family has to be made up of orphans too? Joaquin's mouth opened, but no words came out. His face turned an ugly shade of purplish red. Of course. I didn't really have an uncle. Like me, my parents had no surviving immediate family. After they died, I didn't even have a legal guardian. That was one of the reasons the Move family had felt so free to toy with me in my previous life. I knew this, and since Waqin had been reborn like me, he obviously knew too. But at this point in the timeline, there was absolutely no way for present-day Waqin to know that. So even though he knew everything, he couldn't say a damn thing. Claude, meanwhile, went all in on the act, right? Even homeless people under the bridge have a couple cousins. Why can't I be Rebecca's uncle? Could you not curse people with every word out of your mouth? Oh, you don't believe me? So what? Who asked for your opinion anyway? Oh, I get it now. Judging by that dumbass expression of yours, I bet your family tree is basically a twig. Probably don't even know what a second uncle is. Tell you what, how about I lend you $2 so you can go ride the kitty car at the corner shop and figure it out? I burst out laughing. Claude was seriously good at getting under people's skin, and judging by the look on Joaquin's face, he'd completely lost it. The fact that I laughed only made it worse. His eyes turned bloodshot. Rebecca, my mom paid for your education. She helped you, and now you're just gonna stand there and let this random guy insult me? I almost laughed again. Really? That's what broke you? Waqin, not once did you ever stand up for me. Your sister bullied me. Your mom psychologically manipulated me. You knew damn well neither of us wanted that engagement. But since you were a useless waste, clinging to me was the only way you could keep up appearances as Moo Group's CEO. You refused to divorce me, yet acted like you were the victim, constantly humiliating and suppressing me. My life was hell. My talent became a shackle. My suffering meant nothing. So now it's your turn. Joaquin's eyes welled up. He asked in a soft voice, so this is revenge, Rebecca? If you know that much, then back the hell off. Sure, your mom sponsored me. I owe her. But I never even asked for compensation after your sister broke my damn arm. Did I? Isn't that enough? I went into the room and came back out holding 13,000 yuan. Your mom paid for 3 years, 2 years of tuition and 1,000 per year in grants. It's all here. Take it. From now on, I owe you nothing. Don't ever show your face again. Waqin. Chapter 14. Half a month later, after finishing the last 2 bootstrapping algorithms for Claude, I returned to school. I'd been to the hospital twice to get my cast adjusted. The doctor said my arm was healing well. As long as I avoided heavy lifting for the next year, there shouldn't be any lasting damage. Cristiana was still at school. No surprise there. The case was still pending. Ms. Moo had probably arranged bail or some form of pretrial release for her. But Joaquin's seat was empty. The moment I walked into the classroom, the noisy chatter suddenly dropped. Cristiana was whispering with a few girls, clearly stirring up gossip. When she saw me enter, she raised her voice deliberately. My brother saw it with his own eyes, Rebecca getting out of some strange man's car. No way. Really? For real? That's so trashy. Wow. And here I thought Rebecca was such a good student. Didn't think she was like that. Yeah, gross. Cristiana wasn't even trying to be subtle. Her voice rang out across the whole room. Instantly, everyone turned to look at me with all sorts of weird expressions. Murmurs started up. Cristiana smirked at me and practically shouted, "Rebecca, is it true?" I rolled my eyes, then stepped aside to reveal the homeroom teacher, standing right behind me. Face thunderous. "You want the real answer, teacher?" The homeroom teacher's glare could have melted steel. She lashed out without hesitation. "Cristiana, this is a classroom, not your personal gossip parlor. If you're not here to study, get out." Cristiana's face went pale, then green. Everyone in the class knew she was the adopted daughter of the school board chair. Normally, the homeroom teacher would turn a blind eye to her bullying. This time, she got chewed out in front of everyone. The room instantly exploded with shocked whispers. I strolled back to my seat, light on my feet, and set down my bag. My deskmate and the girl in front of me immediately turned around to help me organize the mountain of worksheets piled on my desk. My deskmate leaned in and whispered, "Rebecca, be careful. Cristiana's glaring at you." I glanced up. Yep, she was practically grinding her teeth to dust. I picked up my water bottle, raised it slightly in her direction, and mimed a little toast. Then I mouthed, "How's it taste?" Apparently not so good, because Cristiana immediately turned and gagged. Chapter 15. Cristiana threw up in the middle of class, loud and gut-wrenching. The homeroom teacher had to stop the lesson and ask 2 classmates to escort her to the nurse's office. Then, in front of the entire class, he called Ms. Mu. But Ms. Mu was busy, so the call was transferred to her secretary. Cristiana stayed in the infirmary until school ended. Not a single person came to check on her. Her adoptive brother and doting mother, once the first to leap to her side at the slightest issue, had seemingly vanished into thin air overnight. Naturally, the class was buzzing with speculation. I sipped my water like it was none of my business, a faint smirk tugging at my lips. From the looks of it, Ms. Mu's patience for her ever-troublesome adopted daughter had nearly run dry. After all, back in the principal's office, Joaquin and Cristiana had clung to each other with zero regard for appearances. Anyone with eyes could tell what was going on between them was far from the behavior of normal siblings. And Ms. Mu? She guarded Joaquin like a treasure. No way she'd let even a hint of scandal, let alone something like incest, tarnish his reputation. Even if there was no blood relation, it didn't matter. But outsiders didn't know all this. To them, it just looked like Cristiana had fallen out of favor. Later, I returned from the homeroom office with a registration form for the provincial math competition. As I passed the back door of the classroom, I noticed the same girls who were gossiping with Cristiana earlier had formed a new whispering circle. So, it's true Cristiana was messing around with her brother? Totally! I mean, why else would she go after every girl who got close to Joaquin? The girl leading the group wore shiny lip gloss and darted a quick glance around the room to make sure Cristiana wasn't there. Her eyes lit up with glee. Wanna hear the best part? My aunt said Cristiana's going to jail. What? Why? The others gasped and crowded closer, begging for more details. Didn't she beat up Rebecca? Rebecca called the cops. And then the whole thing with her and her brother got exposed to Ms. Mu. She used to act so high and mighty because of her mom. But now her mom's done with her, and the cops found a ton of other stuff she did. She lowered her voice dramatically. Remember Freya from class 4 last year? The one who almost jumped off the building? Cristiana hired those thugs. That's why she tried to kill herself. My aunt works at the precinct. She said this time Cristiana's definitely going to jail. Not even the juvenile protection law can save her. You bitches better shut up. Cristiana had just stepped through the classroom door when she exploded, storming forward and slapping the lip gloss girl across the face. The girl froze, stunned, holding her cheek in disbelief. What the hell? How dare you hit me? The other girls rushed to her side, furious. Yeah, you think just because you messed up, no one's allowed to talk about it? Cristiana, you're vile. Ugh, who do you think you are? You're not special. Get over yourself. A flurry of voices surrounded Cristiana like a swarm of bees. She stood there trembling with rage, but couldn't say a word. Then she lunged to fight back, but she was outnumbered. They yanked her by the hair and dragged her straight to the girls' bathroom. Along the way, people pointed and laughed, but no one lifted a finger to help her. even from 2 classrooms away. I could hear Cristiana crying. I turned away, disinterested, and sat back down at my desk. A queen hyena wounded on the savannah quickly becomes prey for her own pack. Without Ms. Mu's protection, Cristiana was nothing, and those very hyenas she once commanded now saw her as fresh meat. You reap what you sow. There's nothing new under the sun. Chapter 16. Half a month later, I had the cast on my right arm removed at the hospital. 5 days after that, I represented the school in the city-level qualifier for the provincial math competition, and unsurprisingly, I took first place. After the provincial round, I brought my championship trophy to the launch event for the new search engine. Claude named the engine exactly as he had in the previous life, Penguin. He'd shaved, styled his hair with gel, and stood stiffly under the spotlight, gripping the microphone. He looked a little nervous, but his eyes shone with passion. I hope every IT professional here can hold on to this belief. He said, be grounded. Never forget why you started. Thunderous applause erupted from the crowd. I was seated in the front row. A name card sat on the table in front of me, with technical advisor neatly printed on it. People still loved the whole genius schoolgirl thing in this era. A reporter snapped a photo of me, and it went mildly viral. Soon enough, someone dug into the past between me and the Mu family, including the still pending lawsuit between me and Cristiana that had been delayed repeatedly under Ms. Mu's arrangements. A math prodigy with a poor background taking down her former sponsor? It practically screamed for headlines. The Mu family's entitled "you owe us" attitude rubbed the public the wrong way. And with all the drama about wealthy families, betrayal, and taboo relationships, it was the perfect tabloid storm. Discussion about me exploded overnight, and Penguin rode the wave to soaring popularity. I didn't mind. Claude had given me a share in the company. Buzz meant money. If people wanted to promote it for free, I sure wasn't going to stop them. Claude, however, did mind. When it came to youth education, he was oddly stubborn, like some overly anxious father. He went to the police station and registered as my temporary legal guardian. Then he personally canceled every interview and public invitation I received. He even accompanied me to court for my case against Cristiana, hovering like a mother hen guarding her chick. Both the chubby guy and I agreed that Claude's sudden surge of maternal instincts had to be because he was addicted to playing the role of my uncle. Claude, of course, denied it. Chapter 17. As a side note, Ms. Mu didn't show up in court. In this life, Reborn Waqin had used his premonition to persuade her to go all in on buying stock in a foreign tech company, the same one that had beaten Claude to market with a search engine in my previous life. They poured nearly all the company's liquidity into that move. But now that Penguin had beaten them to launch, there was no first mover advantage. Their stock tanked to junk status, facing bankruptcy. Ms. Mu no longer had time to worry about her adopted daughter. Cristiana's court-appointed defense attorney was assigned by the state. Cristiana was sentenced to 6 years in prison, due to how widely the case had spread and the public outcry surrounding it. The court went with the harshest sentence they could justify under the law. When the gavel fell, the girl who'd been sitting silently next to me at the plaintiff's table pulled off her baseball cap and mask, and broke down in my arms. I hugged her tightly. Freya, now so frail and thin she looked nothing like the once curvy girl from before, and gently patted her back. Over her shoulder, I looked up. A gray and white sparrow stood by the vent at the top of the domed ceiling, tilting its head curiously at us. Then it flapped its wings and soared into the sky. It was one of the rare clear days in this cold winter.